Hi friends, welcome to Active Self-Protection Extra. Today on John's Briefs with Tim Forshee again. He's done it all in this realm. He is literally the jack of all trades and the master of all of them, quite
Jack of
frankly.
all trades maybe, master of none though, that's for sure.
I want to talk today about the law enforcement and private citizen use of chokes, of neck restraints, and we've really seen a shift in attitude about them. I want to talk to the attorney about it a little bit, and then I have an opinion. Firearms Legal Protection is who I trust to help me after a use of force incident. If you're a Firearms Legal Protection member, I will also be on your team as a consulting expert, and you can attend our monthly Active Self-Protection training seminars for free. Check out all they offer to their members at the link below. So, Tim, you are a firearms guy, a firearms trainer, a defense attorney, former prosecutor, pro tem judge, so you've seen this from lots of sides. There's been a big change in the last couple of years on Americans' perceptions of the use of chokes by law enforcement. And in a lot of places now, they're specifically forbidden by policy.
Well, based upon what happened in Minneapolis, I think that George Floyd was probably responsible for a lot of this wave. Yeah, even though it wasn't technically an arm choke, it was still a choking suffocation.
It was a choke with a knee,
Yeah.
right? And of course, Derek Chauvin was convicted of his murder for that. And so the overflow response from that was, hey, we've got to stop using these because they're not okay. Now, you're not a big martial arts guy?
No, not at all. I have an athletic background. I played college football and I wrestled in college, so I'm not,
Big
averse
foo and strong foo.
not averse to the concept, but I've never done any formal training with MMA or anything. I've always wanted to, but I never have. So yeah.
So my running joke is my son wrestled 3 years in high school, but before that he had 10 years of martial arts before he got to high school, and it was hard for him to learn to not put his back on the mat.
Yep. I went from playing football to one season of rugby, and I was penalized every single play because I was still playing football.
Yeah, what is happening here?
The rules are different.
It took him a little while to realize, no, being face down on the mat is totally okay in wrestling.
Exactly.
I'm fine. This is good. Anyways. I'm a nobody in jiu-jitsu. I'm a white belt in jiu-jitsu, but my rank is in a striking art. But this idea that, wait a minute, the use of a choke is deadly force, I don't buy, because if it was deadly force, we have jiu-jitsu tournaments literally all over the country every week. There's tens of thousands of kids, 10-year-olds using chokes, right? On somebody's back, tightening them up. And then they tap and you let them out, right? So we all know you don't let the little bitty kids do it because they don't have the control.
Right.
But once they are able to understand, no, when they tap, we let it go. This is a useful tool.
Well, I guess my response to that would be, as a guy who's not immersed in that culture, is that I'm sure that's true for people who are immersed in that culture. When you've gone through the ranks and you've done years of training and you've done years of sparring and you know how to tap out, you know when somebody should be tapping out, et cetera, then I think you probably are a very good judge of that. And your peers that are engaging you in those battles are a very good judge of that, right? What I'm worried about is the drunk, overweight, abusive spouse who's choking his wife, right? And they've done studies that show that if somebody uses something as relatively minor as just putting their hand on someone's neck, those people oftentimes end up killing somebody.
Sure.
So it's sort of indicative of an intent, right? So if we're talking about police using those restraints, different conversation. But
yeah, and I think
that's where we are. So if you've got a police officer who's trained in using them and knows how to use them appropriately, then frankly, I don't think it should be viewed any more differently than tasers or pepper spray.
Yeah, and I think so. There's a difference as well. So if you get into this a little bit, there's a difference between a rear naked choke and what they call a lateral vascular neck restraint. Okay. That one was taught by the National Law Enforcement Training Center. That's not my area of specialty. Maybe I'll bring Chuck Haggard on to talk about the LVNR. But same idea, right? I'm going to take this person and I'm going to make them go night-night.
Yeah,
and
you're immobilizing them.
Right.
In a hopefully a safe manner. Yeah.
And of course, you wouldn't do that normally, but if we go back to the killing of Patrick Lyoya that we talked about earlier, You know, if that officer knows how to choke a guy, if he knows, you know, okay, I get my hooks in him, my taser's underneath me, but I'm gonna send this guy night-nightville, and he's gonna, and tap all you want, friend. You're gonna nap right now, okay? There's a joke in jiu-jitsu: tap, nap, or snap, right? You know, that's what we go to, right? So either till you quit by tapping, or you go to sleep, and you do get trained. Hey, listen, if sometimes you'll hem somebody up so much that they can't tap. Their hands are not there, so you wait for they go limp. You know, as soon as you feel that loss of consciousness, you let it up, and then because you don't want to hurt nobody.
Right.
And if he had known how to do that, then he might not have had to shoot the guy.
Could have saved a life. Yeah.
Could have saved his life. And so taking that tool away actually caused an escalation of violence.
Yeah.
All you do, this is like with riot control. You know, when we say, oh, we don't want officers to use any pepper spray, we don't want them to use rubber balls, we don't want them to use, well, what do you leave them with?
That leaves them with lethal force only.
Sticks and guns.
Yeah.
And okay, I mean, if you're going to only leave them, no, we don't want beanbag shotguns, we don't want any of that stuff. We just want sticks and guns. That sounds terrible, you know, and turn the dogs loose on people. It sounds like the 1950s, for God's sake. And so, you know, now what about as a private citizen? Okay, so I know we actually have a mutual acquaintance who has an issue with this right now, that there's some question on that too. Wait a minute, this guy was beating me up, and so I took him to the ground and I made him tap. And I didn't wait, he tapped and I was like, tap away, bro, you're going Sleepyville. And so as soon as he goes Sleepyville, I let him go, and then he ambles off into the wild blue yonder. Is that going to be a problem because of now the police officer use of force?
Well, I have a client, a brand new client, a client that I have right now. The case is not over with, and he got into an altercation at a drive-through at a Chick-fil-A, of course. And
because the Lord's chicken.
Well, the Lord's chicken, but somebody wouldn't let him in, and so there was some honking and digital displays, et cetera, et cetera. And when they got through the
questioning
line,
of parentage and lineage and species.
Yeah. And when they both got through the line, instead of just driving away and munching on their chicken sandwich, the first guy waited for my client, and my client pulled through, and suddenly they have to both get out of their cars and get at it.
Right.
And my client has an extensive MMA background, and he's a really fit, 25-year-old guy that I would not want to tangle with. And he gets the guy on the ground and he chokes him. And the guy doesn't lose consciousness. He lets him up. The guy literally taps and he lets him up. And the guy gets in his car and drives away. And then the cops are called and my guy gets arrested. I don't know how, but somehow I've managed to get that down to a disorderly conduct. And that, I said, you have no idea how lucky you are that this isn't felony aggravated assault. Because that's how it's viewed in our society. The civilians choking each other, that's intent to kill. That's how it's viewed by most prosecutors. Knock on wood, so far we've avoided that. So we'll see what happens. But this does come up. I mean, as more and more people get into that kind of training, and MMA becomes more and more popular. I mean, more people watch that than ever watch boxing, right?
Yeah, for sure.
You're gonna see more and more of this stuff happening, and we need to be prepared with how we're going to deal with it. Because if it's used appropriately by someone who's well trained on it, I agree with you. It's a very good tool to de-escalate a situation without further injury. But
Thankfully, it sounds like in your case,
the guy who's angry, the guy who's pissed off, who can't stop, you damn right keep tapping, but that kind of stuff. Or maybe they pull just a little harder and fracture a vertebrae.
Right.
I mean, that's the kind of stuff that does happen, and you got to make sure. I mean, not everybody's as good of a shooter as you, or not everybody's as good of an MMA as you. So, do we just say it's okay for anybody because it is okay for a few people? That's a slippery slope.
I think you got to ask that question, because watching MMA does not mean that you are trained in the use of a rear naked choke.
Otherwise, I would be a professional football player.
Yeah, I mean, right? and how do you work that? You practice it on the mats, and you have it applied to you. I have been choked more times than I could shake a stick at. Yeah. It sucks, and then you tap, and they let you up, and you go, oh, that's what it's like to not be able to breathe. Great. And I've been choked in sundry ways, and actually, it's fun. Anyways, it's some form of masochism that I don't necessarily need to talk about.
You just have to embrace it, John. That's
and so I think it has a place, but and it sounds like in your client's case that the prosecutor realized, no, this is a trained person probably doing an okay thing, and I don't want to jam that up, but dude, don't get out of the car and
again, I go back to
play finger games.
Why'd you get out of the car? I mean, the guy cut on you online. Okay, you're gonna have to wait another 75 seconds for your chicken. It's gonna be okay.
It'll be okay. And instead, we do the smart thing. So I would say this: if you are, let's say you're a black belt in jiu-jitsu, I ain't, but maybe you are. Be real careful using that choke on the street. Be real careful. And why? Because it can get charged as aggravated assault.
It's one of these things that to certain people it just doesn't look right. And let's be honest, in the world we live in now, post George Floyd, it's a fact of life.
And listen, could you maybe make a successful argument? Well, I'm an expert at this. I realized that he was going to do me harm, and this was a way that I could end that threat without actually hurting him.
That's a $200,000 argument with 20 years in prison hanging over your head.
Yeah, it's a big expensive argument.
Better
to make.
not to have the argument.
And maybe you could. Maybe you can make that argument successfully and okay, fine. But man, you're probably better off as a grappler, catch wrestler, sambo, whatever, using the control techniques and just maintaining control of hands and waist until you can get the cops there. And if you can do that.
To me, the people that use force appropriately, the well-trained shooters, the well-trained martial arts people, the hallmark for those people to me is the discipline and the knowledge and the wisdom to know to walk away.
Yeah.
I know I've got this in my hip pocket. I know I have a gun. I know I can have it out in 1.3 seconds. I've got a lot more time here to deal with this than the average schmo. It takes them 4 seconds. So use that time to be wise and to apologize and back off and de-escalate. That's a sign of somebody that they don't tell you what a badass they are. They avoid being a badass.
I think that's why you see, the high-end martial arts guys, whether it's jiu-jitsu or whatever art, okay? They never get in fights.
They never get in fights ever, yeah.
Because why? Because they go, well, that's dangerous. That guy might hurt me.
Exactly.
And I said this before, that listen, before I started studying martial arts, before I started training, I would say, hey man, I don't want to have a problem with you because I don't want you to hurt me. Mm-hmm. And then hopefully you gain a little bit of wisdom as you get through the skill set and you go, hey man, I don't want a problem. I don't want to hurt you.
Right.
I don't want either of us to get hurt today. So let's just call it, and I'll be the bigger person, right?
Well, and of course, even saying that out loud will intimidate, will exacerbate the situation.
Right. So you don't want to say that out loud.
But you know it.
Your
exactly.
internal
You know it. That's my point. That's called wisdom and discipline.
Yeah,
that's what I respect.
Hey man, I don't, I don't want a problem. You're right. Have a nice day, and that's easy. But sometimes when you're 25 and you've got your loved ones with you, and some dude like throws something at you, you go, oh no, and I've been that guy.
Of course.
I got in a few fist fights that way.
Anybody that says they've never been that guy is probably lying.
Yeah, it's probably lying. Yep. So I just want you, from a legal perspective, be very careful taking any kind of wind choke or blood choke off the mats and into the real world, because prosecutors and juries don't love them and they're expensive to adjudicate.
That's right.
Thanks for the knowledge.
You bet.